Hey, good morning, everybody. Very excited to be here. I was asked to talk about Agentic AI. I work for a company called Denodo. So, what I'll do, the purpose of my talk is to talk about Agentic AI and lead you to a business problem that's faced when you want to implement AI strategies and AI workflows and how Denodo can solve it. The challenge I was facing this morning is we have people that work in hospitals, we have people that work in government, we have private sector, we have students, we have technical people, we have non-technical people, we have AI experts, we have Power BI experts. So I was kind of struggling, how am I going to make this talk relevant for everyone? So first is, some people already know the answer to everything I'll say, but I decided to use a use case that would resonate with everyone because otherwise, it's hard. So let's talk about. Can you see my screen? Oh, we'll talk about supermarket flyers. You know why? Something that we all love to hate. I always just throw them in the recycle bin. So I'm going to use flyers as a proxy use case to explain Agentic AI, around something we all understand. So I would love flyers way more if they were kind of more relevant to me. And just bear with me for a moment. You'll see where I'm starting with this introduction. So if, as an example, the people that make flyers, they knew I have like 3 boys that eat a lot and that they have a gluten allergy, they're celiac, so don't try to sell me bread. That there's a lot of competition in my neighborhood. I don't drink sodas, and I'm actually a walking blueberry. You don't know it, but I love blueberries. So the point is that, it wouldn't be amazing if people knew who I was and made flyers, very focused. So it's obvious. Now, one thing that we don't know, I didn't know it until recently, is that to generate this sheet of paper that I receive every week, it's actually 8 weeks of work with, done by 15 people. It's a lot of work week after week after week. And the good news, though, is that someone is working and improving that process, making it more personalized, maybe digital, and also faster to create. So going from 8 weeks to 2 weeks, and 15 people to 3 people. I've heard of projects doing that right now. And how are they going to achieve this? It's by using Agentic AI. So before we get into Agentic AI, and this was brought up in earlier sessions today, is what is AI? So AI helps you with email. AI can read a radiography. It can, look for, try to translate faxes. Different kinds of AI. Today, I want to talk about AI that's related to data. Those use cases where you need to work with tangible, actual data. So not an email, but maybe the list of patients in the ER, right now. So first thing is to understand the distinction between chatbots and Agentic AI. A chatbot, as we're all familiar with, right? It's like a ChatGPT. You can ask questions. It's reactive. It's a tool, in a data context, it's a tool that can enrich your existing Power BI report. So if you have a report, you want to dig a little bit more, then you use maybe your chatbot to access the same databases and get an answer, that enriches your Power BI experience. And for non-technical users, think of, I was actually once told by a nurse, I'm just a nurse, but it's amazing what I can do with this kind of interface because I can ask plain, natural language questions and get some data answers. So it's a way to provide a data experience to non-technical people that don't speak SQL. It's very powerful, but it's limited to what it is, right? So it's just a chatbot. Agentic AI, on the other way, it's a way to automate work. And we had great use case examples, I explained this morning. But see it as a way to handle manual tasks that can be either automated or you can augment the work of people working with it. So in the case of data, as an example, because we're data people in the room, if you have like this tenuous workflow of assembling data sources and creating reports and then doing it again, and it takes weeks or days to create reports, imagine if you could automate that work. I'm sorry, guys, just a question. I don't see the speaker view. Thank you. So basically, right, the idea of Agentic AI is to simplify or automate work that you do. So I wanted to set that as a starting point so that we understand the difference between the two kind of technologies. So I wanted to give an example of where agentic AI could make a difference in the world of data. Again, we're data people in the context of healthcare, obviously, but we're still data people in the room. And I tried to find an example of, thank you. Just waiting for the slide. Sorry about that, guys, but I can do a dance maybe or something. So just waiting for the slide. In fact, the point is that I wanted to find an example of where data is complex. And I'm sorry, we don't have the slides on the screen. Thank you. And so I wanted to, I didn't know any hospital director or someone, the person that asked the hard questions. Maybe it's your internal customer or something. So I tried to find a good example that I wanted to show you on screen, but cool. So basically I was looking for an example of something hard. Anyway, look, I thought, what if this guy was your boss? Okay, so we all have our own personal Mark Carney asking tough questions. It could be your boss, it can be your internal customer. I wanted to give an example of, well, let's just have a look at his question here. How will Canada's GDP evolve over time based on, energy investment and global, prices and whatnot? So it takes a lot of data sources, a lot of people collaborating to generate a report that answers that question here. And what we're seeing now is that what if, Mark says, okay, thank you, this is great, amazing work, but then what if, the tariff go up, or what if, we change our economical projections? Then it's a lot of redo by a bunch of different people across ministries to then answer that question again. So the point of that slide here is that expectations from your internal customers, as data people, they're changing. It's not like this pre-built Power BI report that was good enough. That doesn't work anymore, right? You need to work with an unexpected question, ever-changing requirements, and the ability to tap into a wide range of data sources to answer questions. So that, I just wanted to use that as an example to illustrate why you need agentic AI to automate data analysis work. So agentic AI works in a bunch of different use cases. We had great examples in the panel just before. Imagine, as an example, if you had maybe a workflow that allows you to enrich to augment the work of the triage nurse at the hospital, suggesting questions to better understand causes and symptoms. Or if you had an automated agent that can do claim analysis, look for missing data, errors, fill the forms automatically, or even a bed management assistant that helps you understand the needs from different departments and plan resources accordingly. So there's a ton of ways that agentic AIs can be used. And I couldn't find a better example than what we heard earlier, again in the panel, like it's happening right now. So very often when I present about agentic AI, people come to me and say, oh, it's amazing, but it's not going to happen in my organization, before 2-3 years. We're not there yet. The point is that it's happening right now. Hospitals and other organizations, the government and the private sector, they're all making progress towards AI and agentic AI. So we as data people in the room, if you're already an AI expert, it's fine, no problem. But if you work on Power BI as an example, it's important to understand that our skills need to change now, right? So BI won't go away, but it will change. Instead of generating just insights, it will embed the insights into business processes. Again, we've heard stories of that earlier today, right? And we were talking about visualization, so it's not visualization anymore. It's about orchestrating business processes. It's about embedding insights into, again, our business processes. And the role of people need to change. So anyone in the room who's a Power BI expert that writes reports, now's the time to change things, right? Instead of being data creators, we have to become data logic owners, semantic builders, right? So everything to prepare the data for AI. So it's a huge shift. All right, so with that said, understanding the urgency of the transformation happening right now, what is it? How does it work? So we've talked about AI, we've talked about a bunch of use cases, but physically what is it? How do you make it work? Some people know the answer, but others don't. So when you build an agentic AI workflow, there's a bunch of tools that allow you to do drag and drop, like creation of a physical workflow, really something that you build. So in the context of my supermarket flyers, right, you have to coordinate the role of different people. So in this case, we have different agents like a salesperson, a store performance management person, someone in charge of promotions. And you would assemble this kind of agentic AI workflow to automate the work of these teams or simplify their work. What's really powerful about what you're seeing here is that there's no code. There's no SQLs, there's no DAX, there's no Python. It's just plain language that explains your goal. And the objective is to give each AI agent a goal that they can execute and return an answer that will then be consumed by the next agent. So you build these steps for each agent, and within an agent, you can specify sub-goals. So the idea is that you empower non-technical people that know the domain, they're the experts, to express in their own words what's needed, and then they can assemble this workflow that will generate a Power BI report in the end. But where you needed some experts, now anybody can do it. It's extremely powerful. So you have all these agents that are then, let's say, circled by a coordinator agent. That's the one that would interact with the human. So building an AI workflow is as simple as that. There's a caveat, and I'll talk about it later. It's not simple, but it can. The basis, it feels like it's simple, and I just invite everyone to give it a try because it's super cool. So in the context of our flyer, right? So you have this coordinator agent that needs to satisfy me as a human, and it needs to coordinate the work of the other agents that each have their own specialty, right? So you have as I said, the marketing agent in charge of deciding, okay, is it Christmas theme or back to school? What are the discounts that you can apply? Do we have the inventory? So all these tasks that are needed to assemble a workflow, it's the same thing as what Michaela was saying earlier, right? You need to build relationships with the local experts because they're the ones that are going to give you your prompts and the descriptions that you need so that this workflow behaves properly. So it's really important to work with the local experts to make this real and acceptable. Now, building, the flyer is the end, but we're data people. We're interested in data. So what are the data sources behind the scene? And that's something that's often overlooked. So if I wanted to build like a nice workflow, I have to connect very different data sources. Not everything lives in one data warehouse or data lake. If you think that, I'm sorry, but you're wrong. So you have master data about products and customers and stores. Buying patterns. I don't buy bread, as an example. Then store performance. You'll have pictures, legal material. Then if you want to tailor your offering, maybe there's a game tonight and you want to promote, chicken wings, then, you need that kind of information. If you're competitors, maybe you can tap on their website to see what's available now. So the point here is that building an AI workflow requires to work with very disparate data sources. So again, there was a time when we had a pre-built Power BI report, would create cubes and dimensions, and everything would work fine. Now we have to adjust to ever-changing requirements. So it's not the same, and it's much harder. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. The reality is more complex than that. You work in a multilingual country. Ever-changing technologies, on-premise, cloud, every 5 years there's something new. So Power BI might not be there in 5 years. What is it going to be replaced with? Same thing with ChatGPT, we don't know. And then you have privacy regulations kicking in more and more, and so on. So the point is that you have to take all of that into account when you build your workflow. So I know we already expressed all the challenges working in a hospital context. That's already so hard, but add on top of that all the legal and the IT complexities, you need to be prepared for that. So there's one super important element which is not on that slide. You've all heard about it, but I want to reemphasize it. It's the semantic layer. If you don't know what it is, it's basically making sense of your data. So on the left, I have raw data that lives in a database. On the right, I have the same data. I know it's simplistic, right? But it's structured in a way that humans understand it. So if you've done Power BI for ages, you know what a semantic model is. The point here, though, is that if you want your data to be usable by humans, it needs to be part of a semantic model, and it's the same thing with AI. So I found a Cornell, university research. They tested training an AI on raw data versus, data based on ontology, and the results were not surprisingly very, very, superior. So when you start working with AI, of course we worry about, okay, garbage in, garbage out, my data is not good, the doctors, they forget, the nut or whatever. But the point is that, we as data people need to get the data to the next level so that the AI can make sense of it, right? So assembling that semantic layer, combining data from multiple sources, so telling the model what is a high-risk cause of admission at the ER, as an example, or what's the average length of stay in a surgery department. So all of that are things that you need to add on top of your data so that you can use the data on a day-to-day basis. And then there are best practices, right? When you build an agentic AI workflow, you want to separate how things are done and decided. So there's all the governance part of the data. You want to enforce the same privacy policies as if people were using Power BI. So you can't see all the data because you're going through an AI, as an example. How do you interact with the data, the connectivity, the real-time access to data, and then your business logic. So the point is that when you build an agentic AI workflow, you can't hard code your privacy privileges, your logic all in one place, right? You have to decouple things so that it's modular and you can more easily evolve so that you can adjust to ever-changing questions and requirements. So what does it look like if we take an agentic AI workflow? So it starts with the front end, right? It can be Teams, it can be Slack, it can be whatever you want. It can be a website, a chatbot, but there's a point where your human will start. And then the next level is the agentic AI workflow engine. I know some of you are very familiar with this, but others might not be. So Crew AI, N8N, Microsoft Copilot, as an example, are very good tools that help you assemble your workflow. Those engines are just workflow engines. So they need to be connected to large language models to understand your questions, to act on what's expected from them, on their goals. And those then will interact with data as needed to generate the flyer, right? So a lot of data, the ability to work and connect with all these data sources. So it seems easy, but it's not that simple, right? There's a gap between the data and the workflow engine. That gap is the data access platform or layer, in the sense that when you work in the context of AI with data, you need to deal with real-time connectivity, and flexible connectivity, because data sources could change based on the requirements. So agility is needed. The second point, right, is a database join engine. What I mean by this, I'm sorry for being technical, but everybody understands this, is your workflow engine is not capable of joining data from all these sources and making sense of that data. Because remember, your joins will happen in real time. There's no pre-built report here. I have a question. The engine needs to be able to say, okay, I have data there, I'm going to join, I'm going to filter, and that's the result I'll return to the user. So yes, you could do it in Snowflake or Fabric if you have it, but not. The reality is that there's very little chance that all your data is in one engine. And then after that, you have to think of your semantic layer that I just mentioned, right? So making sense of the data in one system is hard enough, but making sense of the data across systems requires domain expertise, and it requires just a place to write that. If I have a description, if I have some tags, if I want to enrich column names, create data products, you need a place for this to live, that layer. And last but not least, right, privacy. It's even more important in our space than in other industries. So, as I said, you can't hard code your privacy in your workflow, right? So you need a layer that will work with maybe your LDAP as an example, or privacy policy management solution to enforce privacy. So it's anonymization or encryption or tokenization or dynamic data masking, name it, depending on the use case, but you need to be able to secure the data that will be used. So there aren't that many technologies that solve that gap problem here. What a chance, right? That the company I work for happens to be one of the very few. Actually, the fact is it's the only one. So yes, you can do it in Snowflake, you can do it in AWS, but being able to work with all these data sources and having that universal database join engine that performs and that can enforce privacy policies, it's a new set of capabilities that we're seeing, in Denodo. I'll explain what Denodo does in just a few minutes, but prior to that, we're doing other kind of use cases, and with the emergence of AI and agentic AI, there's a renewed interest in the flexibility of a logical data platform. So instead of moving everything in one place, which is not possible in the era of AI, you have to be able to reach the data in real time from where it is while enforcing privacy policies. So I wanted to take this and turn this into a hospital use case. So my wife happens to work at a ER department, and we discussed some use cases, and she complained about bed management. So I thought, okay, let's build a bed management agentic AI, right? And we've heard about great use cases, so nothing new here. But the point is that if you want to coordinate knowledge, data, it's tangible data, as an example, from the ER room and with gastro, and then you have maybe the finance people for resources. Don't judge me, I don't work in a hospital, right? I just did my best here. But the point is that you need to have different agents, specialized agents that talk to different kind of systems. It can be an Epic, it could be a Pulse Check for ER room management, or SAP for resource management. The point, though, is that as you build that workflow, you need to ensure that there is no hallucination. When you work with documents, PDF, fax, it's one thing. When you work with hard data, people need to trust that what the number they're seeing, the name of the patient, the social security number, health number, whatever, is the right one, right? So you have to enforce that. Semantics, so that your AI understands what it is. What is, as I said, a cause of, hospitalization for gastro problems. Real-time data, fast. Be ready for unplanned question and generate unplanned answers. Cross-system and enforce privacy policies. So I was hoping to be able to tell you that I did this in 2 hours on Friday night with a glass of wine. I actually managed to build a workflow, and it worked. I got the results, based on my dummy data. I had a need for 13 beds. It was great until I click run again. And then I got a completely different answer. Not different data points, but more like now the system, ChatGPT was asking me something else, and I need clarification on this or that. So the lesson learned here is that Denodo will always return, the way, this workflow is connected through Denodo to all these data sources. So Denodo will always return the right data as if it was Power BI. But when you work with with LLMs, it's a different set of challenges. So what we gain in simplicity by writing our goals in English, we lose in the need to have the right prompt that will generate the expected answer. So here my point is that get started now, try, explore, pilot, whatever, but now's the time to work also with experts. that have done this because it's not as easy as it seems. So getting the data, which is my part, is easy, but making ChatGPT work on a consistent manner is quite challenging. All right, so I work with at Denodo. I talked about Agentic AI workflow, but we've been in the market for 25 years, working with healthcare organizations on other use cases. Our primary market is actually to help you deliver a self-service data democratization strategy. So we've worked with, as an example, in Quebec, you don't know them, but it's the largest hospital center in Quebec. They manage 3,400 beds. It's kind of a decent number. And you would think that they'd have a large data team, but the reality is they don't. So they said we need to be super efficient on how we create data products and reports, and we need a tool that will help us manage our data way more efficiently than what we've seen before. We work with Cincinnati Children, one of the top children hospital in the US. There it's a different use case. They said we want to connect people and data. We want to empower our nurses, our doctors to use more data so that they can make a difference in their day-to-day. And by getting more data points and by being able to track, new mothers, as an example, they were able to assess which babies needed better support to, I don't know if enforce the good word, but to get, maternal milk. And they had an amazing KPI, right? So 7% of improvement just by using better data. So it made their employee proud. That's what they said was the most important. And kind of related, First Nation Health Authority in BC, they work with a large territory and a population which can be sometimes, I need to be careful here, but harder to work with for all the reasons that we know, unfortunately. So they said one way to give these people the best possible service is to better manage our data, better govern our data, and equip ourselves with means to use data as efficiently as possible. And last example, right, the Mayo Clinic in the US, their use case was different. It's not a question of scale of the team or anything, it was speed. It's COVID, we need to create better schedules and everything, so we need to access our data fast. And that's one of the key benefits of a virtual data platform like Denodo. So 4 different use cases, but that kind of all relate to this one overall need, which is data democratization, better use of data. And that's done through 4 pillars. Data literacy, so enabling people to find data that they need. If you don't know data available, you won't be able to do anything. Access data more easily in Power BI or Python notebook or whatever, create data products and enforce governance with a proper semantic layer for all kinds of different users. If you're a Power BI user or data scientist, your needs are different, but you need a platform that serves everybody. So we have a virtual data platform. We're in a data lake. We just go get the data in real time from the sources and make it easy to consume by the end users. Now, one last slide, or 1 or 2 slides before I let you go. As I said, right, getting the data, which is my expertise, is kind of the easy part, if I could say. Making your Agentic AI workflow work efficiently is harder, and that's why we work with business partners. So our neighbors in the other room is Bronson. They have expertise in building Agentic AI workflows. So together, between the data access layer and their expertise, that's, I think, a good mix to make it real and make Agentic AI workflows that are more efficient than the one I built on Friday night. So with that said, right, keep in mind, it's happening now. So if you're not engaged in an AI, or I would say Agentic AI or data-driven AI, which is not the same thing as the other AI, right? Do it now. Get started, even if it's just on your own personal time. But make sure that you build the skills for this, because otherwise, it will happen without you. The second thing is, as much as AI engine workflows are not perfect, as I said earlier, they're hard to configure. It's important to get started on data right now. So creating that semantic layer, cleaning the data, it's not going to happen by itself. So now's the time to do it. And as I said, right, focus on your personal expertise before the world does it for you. If you want to learn more, we just released a book a month ago on the AI and challenges and how a virtual data platform can make a difference. So feel free to have a look. It's a virtual book. And with that said, thank you very much. Please join us at the booth if you have questions. I'll be happy to answer them with my Bronson friends. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Etienne. That was it was very well received, and I think that's where there's. It's funny because it was just the other day. I was almost remissing about the fact that I don't really code anymore, but I'm thinking I'm okay now because I could prompt engineer, right? And that's so it's and like literally it was like a year ago I was advertising for coders. And now I'm thinking about, my job postings are more about prompt engineering, right? So it's crazy how it's changing.
Very much.
Any questions for Etienne? We got take time for one question. If not, again, sorry, Victoria, quick question.
I piqued my interest when you were saying our jobs are going to change, analytics jobs are going to change. And then I was thinking, all our children are actually playing with AI, grade 6, grade 4, grade 9, the university students are using it to help them with their writing. I think our generation, if we don't get on board the AI, that generation is going to come up against us and will be outdated. So that really stuck in my head.
Yeah, indeed, I agree. I have 3 kids, so yes. Yeah, very fair point. Thank you.
Yeah, it's definitely going to change our workforce and change our jobs and how we do it. So again, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.